Recording in progress.
Madam Clerk, the time is 6:45 p.m. I call to order this special closed session of the City Council and Management of Emeryville Service Authority. This meeting is being conducted in person at 1333 Park Avenue here in Emeryville, California. The City Council welcomes comments, including criticisms about the policies, procedures, programs, or services of the city or of the acts or omissions of the City Council. Speakers shall not use threatening, profane, or abusive language which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of a City Council, successor agency, management of Emeryville Services Authority, or related meeting. The city is committed to maintaining a workplace free of unlawful harassment and is mindful that city staff regularly attend council meetings. Discriminatory statements or conduct that would potentially violate the Fair Employment and Housing Act, such as statements or conduct that is hostile, intimidating, oppressive, or abusive, is per se disruptive to a meeting and will not be tolerated. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Bouders?
Here.
Councilmember Carr?
Present.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Here.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Present.
And Mayor Welch.
Here. Item 3 is ex parte communications. Members, do any of you have ex parte communications to report for this agenda? Yes. I spoke with Ariana Casanova with SEIU and received written correspondence from Jesse with SEIU as well. Yes, Member Bowders.
I received a letter from representative of camp.
Or sorry, Camp. My apologies. Anyone else?
I received the same email.
I may have received the same one.
I didn't get anything. I didn't get no love.
Okay. Item 4 is public comment on closed session items. Any member of the public that would like to make a comment on an item on the closed session items can do so now for 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. My name is Navarra Oaks. I'm Senior Planner with the City of Emeryville and Interim President for SEIU chapter here. I'm here to discuss the situation going on with proposed payments for this staff to pay 6.2% towards Social Security. We have received regular messaging from our city manager that he wants to do everything he can to support staff throughout this process. And Paul has also stated in his weekly communications to staff that he remains committed to working through issues and impacts with everyone, and that this topic is unsettling for all of us, and that he remains committed to doing everything he can to make it clear and as smooth as possible. So far, the meet and confer process has not left us feeling supported, and the members of SEIU do not feel that the proposals by the city demonstrate commitment to working through issues and impacts, nor have the results of the meet and confer process thus far demonstrated a commitment to doing everything possible to make things clear and smooth as possible. Our two main concerns are the city's insistence on rapid implementation of IRS contributions directly from employees. At the same time, the average monthly pay will be reduced because of switching from a bi-monthly pay period to a pay period of every 2 weeks. While we understand that employees will receive the same amount of pay annually 10 months out of the year, pay will be 8% less because of the payment system. Secondly, and most importantly, the city is not offering to make employees whole. A 6.2% lowering of pay is significant. That covers utilities. That's a lot of food. That is the difference between being able to pay rent or not being able to pay rent. No matter how fiscally responsible individual employees are, our members will need to take out loans and will need to tap into emergency funds just to meet basic needs. Our lowest paid members qualify as extremely low income for families of 4 and very low income for single member households. Our employees cannot take a 6.2% hit to their income without extreme negative effects, particularly in our housing crisis and with rising inflation. The city is in its best financial position to take on the responsibility of a 6.2% payment. The city has never used money.
Thank you for your comment.
I'm Amber Evans, and I'm prepared to yield my time to Navarro.
That's fine.
Thank you. As I was saying, the city is in the best financial position to take on the responsibility of a 6.2% payment. The city has never used money from its emergency fund to cover expenses and has never taken out a loan or bonds to cover street improvements, standard practice in other cities. The fiscal responsibility of the city has left it in a good position to make employees whole by offsetting the 6.2% payment to Social Security. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I'm Mike Roberts, Senior Civil Engineer with Public Works Department, SEIU member and 22-year employee in Emeryville. With the strength of fairness, obligation, precedent, and ability to pay on your side, I ask that you reconsider your position regarding reducing SEIU membership's pay by 6.2%. This is not a matter of the city's ability to pay, but the city's opportunity to stabilize the quality of life of its working people that maintain its streets, plan its parks, account for its finances, and design its bike facilities. For me, a 6.2% reduction in pay impacts my ability to fund my children's education and pay a mortgage. This is not a matter of the city's ability to pay, but an opportunity to honor the condition of employment understood by its employees. I was hired with the understanding that my wages would not be subject to SSI and have made long-term fiscal decisions assuming that discretionary income would be available to me. This is not a matter of the city's ability to pay, but an opportunity to follow recent and relevant precedent set by the city of Martinez and its workers. Not so long ago, the city of Martinez was faced with the same decision and took the fair and reasoned path to act in the best interest of the city and its workers by not requiring a 6.2% reduction in pay. We again ask that you, with the strength of fairness, obligation, precedent, and an ability to pay on your side, that you reconsider your position on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker.
This thing on? Good evening, bosses. My name is Nick Ignacio. I'm an associate civil engineer with the Public Works Department, a card-carrying SEIU member, and I just wanted to say a few words to address my feelings on this matter. I'm told that my wages will be garnished to the tune of 6+% during an upcoming pay period. As I understand it, this is due to the city making a poor choice in interpreting how employees would be classified by the IRS and attempting to require its employees to pay for its error in professional judgment. Now, I apologize if I'm not using the right technical terms to describe this, but I'm just a simple staffer and not an attorney or anything. This feels a little bit like ordering lunch at Baybreak, waiting 10 minutes for your meal, only for a waiter to come out and tell you that they dropped your food on the floor and that Alameda County Health didn't rule in their favor, but you should still pay for your tacos or whatever. Does that sound like it makes sense? Seems like something corporate America might say, I guess, but I don't know. Not a lawyer. Furthermore, 6% off my paycheck slashes and guts the funding I've budgeted to pay for my BART ride to and from work. Given that the city was adamantly uninterested in making full remote work a perk of my employment, it seems pretty awesome and super cool that they would make me commute for work and then take away the cash I would use to get there. It's also especially cool that a city so committed to active transportation would do such a thing. I don't know, maybe I need to be a lawyer or something to comprehend this. Lastly, I was hired by the city on the basis of a compensation package that did not include paying into Social Security. This is a fundamental change to my condition of employment, which doesn't seem to be something that the city can just foist upon me. Seems illegal, but yeah, not a lawyer, just some guy trying to pay his bills. With all that said, it seems like there's a precedent for the city in the same situation doing right by its employees for its own mistake. I'd encourage Emeryville to follow the city of Martinez's example of being fair and cover the cost of its own negligence in full and engaging in no further ransacking of its employees' already limited wages. Cheers.
Thank you for your comment. Any other speakers?
Hello. My name is Kristen Gray, Recreation Supervisor and member of CAMP, our Manager and Confidential Employees Association. The city has not put forward any plan to mitigate the impacts of this imposed Social Security changes on employees and has only proposed to move out implementation by 2 weeks from the city's original proposal. In response, CAMP has revised our proposal to both align the timing of upcoming changes and smooth the effects of changes that decrease take-home pay. Our creative tiered approach is identical to the approach the city took from 2010 to 2013 to ease the transition of PERS payments by employees. The city should begin Social Security deductions no sooner than July 1st and provides lump sum tiered payments over 3 years to ease the transition. Regardless of income level, most employees have ongoing financial commitments such as debt, rent, mortgages, utilities, et cetera, which have been entered into with an expectation of a certain level of take-home pay. A new deduction of 6.2% for a CAMP member making $56,203 a year or $44.53 a month is $276 less a month before taxes. Employees need certainty in what they can expect to be paid in order to plan their financial lives. While Social Security is a benefit for employees, it is a benefit that will not be realized for most employees for many years, and by some accounts may not be realized at all for younger employees who are also at the lower end of the salary schedules at the beginning of their careers. Share something about how this impacts you. I love getting to do what I do. I'm very proud of the work that I do in the Community Services Department. I don't always feel proud of working for the city, and I feel like I just want to be proud to work here because I can do my job anywhere, and I'd be proud of that work that I do, but I want to be proud to work here.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comment. Any other speakers?
Thank you. My name is Ryan Fettis. I'm a field representative for SEIU Local 10-1. We came today with a small contingency of our members that work for the city of Emeryville to make a clear ask. Please instruct your bargaining team to make a concession on our behalf and award the 6.2% that the workers are asking for. This small investment in your workforce will lead to a 100-fold return on that investment. If you love your workers will love you back. That's what I have to say tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comment. Any other speakers for public comment? This is public comment on items on the closed session agenda. Okay. All right, public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, we'll be taking item 5 and all sub-items in closed session. The time is 6:56 p.m. We're adjourned to closed session.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Returned from closed session. Mr. Kennedy, can you please report out on closed session?
Thank you, Mayor Welch. There was no reportable action taken in closed session tonight.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:35 PM. This meeting is adjourned. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:35 PM. I call to order the City of Emeryville as successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. This meeting is being conducted in person at 1333 Park Avenue here in Emeryville. Oh, boy. The City Council welcomes comments, including criticisms about the policies, procedures, programs, or services of the city or acts or omissions of the City Council. Speakers shall not use threatening, profane, or abusive language which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of a City Council, successor agency, management of Emeryville Services Authority, or related meeting. The city is committed to maintaining a workplace free of unlawful harassment and is mindful that city staff regularly attend council meetings. Discriminatory statements or conduct that would potentially violate the Fair Employment and Housing Act, such as statements or conduct that is hostile, intimidating, oppressive, or abusive, is per se disruptive to a meeting and will not be tolerated. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders? Councilmember Carr?
Present.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Here.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Present.
And Mayor Welch.
Here. Item 3 is approval of the final agenda. Members, do we have a motion on the final agenda?
I move approval.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch.
Aye. Item 4 is ex parte communications. Members, do any of you have any ex parte communications to report out for this agenda? Seeing and hearing none, thank you. Time is now for public comment. Any member of the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda or items not on this agenda can do so now for 2 minutes. We're on the successor agency? Yep, next meeting. Next meeting,
In 2 minutes.
in just a minute. Thank you. All right, seeing no members of the public wishing to make comment, I now close public comment. Item 6 is the consent agenda. Members, would any of you like to pull an item off consent, or if not, do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch.
Aye. Item 7, there's no action items. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:37 PM. This meeting is adjourned. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:37 PM. I call to order this meeting of the Emeryville City Council. This meeting is being conducted here in person at 1333 Park Avenue here in Emeryville. Madam Clerk, I would like to note that all members are still present. Item 3 is approval of the final agenda. Members, I would like to propose 2 different changes. I propose us taking items 5 through 10 next. We have a few presentations, and so I want to take items 5 through 10 next, and then return back to item 4, and then take items 12 through 15. Also, item 12.3 on the action items space should actually be on the consent agenda. It's just a continuation of a city contract that has no cost to the city.
Second the mayor's motion.
All right, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch.
Aye, thank you, members. Item 5 is announcement of commission and committee vacancies. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, as you know, we have an open recruitment for our committees going on right now. It closes next Tuesday, May the 28th at 5 p.m. We've received 13 applications to date, and the application is available on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6 is council member special announcements and reports on meetings attendance. Any council members with any special announcements? Member Pryforce?
Madam Clerk, sorry, could you share what those positions are, just for the public that are open for the committees?
I
sorry
have to
about
look
that.
it up. Sorry,
Okay,
Councilmember
that's okay.
Pryforce. I can do that in just a
Okay,
minute if you'd like
okay.
me to.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Any other announcements? All right. Item 7, City Manager's Report.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 8 is ex parte communications. Members, please take a look at this agenda. Are there any ex parte communications to report? Anybody? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Yes,
Well,
Member Pryforce?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, Bart Safe and Clean just passed me the card about a couple of minutes ago, so that's about it.
All right. All right, and item 9 is public comment for the consent agenda and items not on the agenda. Any member of the public that would like to make public comment on the consent agenda or items not on this agenda can do so now for 2 minutes. Yes, please.
Speaking for some public people who use Emeryville Recreation Department facilities and as a part-time employee for community services as a lifeguard. I don't know whether how deep this goes as far as City Council knowing this, but I've asked for over a year and a half to have it clarified that city employees in my department, temporary part-time, do not receive pay for canceled shifts. No, regardless of how long the notification is. I understand this is a state exemption from California state law that cities and city governments are exempt. It doesn't stop other cities from doing it. It greatly impacts people's income when it happens. For example, for me, 1 shift equals over a week's worth of groceries. No one knows about it. It's not published. I've asked it to be published in a manual. It's not in a manual as of last week or in the scheduling software. I don't know, and I went beyond my supervisors because it's over a year I've tried to get this clarified. That's why I'm here. It also gets more egregious when management cancels a shift. I have numerous examples, but don't have time to tell about it. And don't step in and take the place of the worker who can't be there and closing the facility, canceling the program, and canceling the amount of money that we would have made that night and income from the public so that they can stay home and collect their salary. I understand it may be beneficial to the city in some ways, but that seems something far, far out of line. So I have no idea what the next process would be because I skipped over to a manager, a supervisor, and a director of departments to get here because I have not received enough feedback to address this issue. And it's not uncommon.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public wishing to comment?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Ryan Lau, External Affairs Representative at AC Transit. Wanting just to provide a quick update on our Realign initiative. So as a reminder, Realign is a review and update of our entire bus network, working within our existing bus operator count and budgetary resources, aimed at meeting the needs of our riders in the post-pandemic era. So we just went live recently with the formal public outreach period, and it'll run through June 5th. On our website, www.actransit.org/realign, we have a variety of different tools, route profiles. We have a new trip planner that has the new proposal loaded in, so you know how it'll actually affect your day-to-day lives. We've been going to city council meetings such as this one, making announcements, community events, and we're doing pop-ups at high traffic bus stops. We have an upcoming virtual workshop this Thursday, the 23rd, as well as a board workshop on June 5th. And again, you can find more information at www.actransit.org/realign. And we have a formal public hearing process starting in August, and we're looking for it to conclude in September with a board decision in October and implementation in March of 2025. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the public wishing to make comment? No? All right, public comment is now closed. Item 10 is the consent agenda. Members, would any of you like to pull an item off consent? If not, do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
I will make a motion to approve items 10.1 through 10.7, along with item 12.3 at the mayor's agenda modification request.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch.
Aye. Thank you. We'll be going back to item 4. Taking item 4.2, the proclamation of the City Council of the City of Emeryville proclaiming May 2024 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. The proclamation is as follows. Whereas the month of May was chosen as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese citizen, Nakahama Manjiro, to the United States on May 7th, 1843, but also the anniversary of May 10th, 1869, completion of the first transcontinental railroad built with the back-breaking labor of nearly 20,000 Chinese immigrants. And whereas more than 30% of Alameda County's population is Asian American and Pacific Islander and includes devoted community members who serve as artists, business owners, educators, healthcare professionals, lawyers and judges, clergy members, first responders, and military personnel. And whereas we celebrate the achievements and contributions of Asian American and Pacific Islanders who enrich our history, society, and culture. And whereas we recognize that throughout our history, AAPI communities have been the target of violence, disenfranchisement, efforts to restrict immigration, and other xenophobic policies at the federal, state, and local level. And whereas the echoes of this dark history are evident today in the shameful anti-Asian hate acts seen across the country, it is imperative that we confront the past and present racism and fight for the safety and inclusion of our AAPI communities. And whereas during Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Emeryville pays tribute to the irreplaceable legacy of our AAPI community, their incredible strength and resilience, and their essential role in driving our nation forward. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Emeryville that May 2024 is hereby proclaimed as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and that every resident is urged to take time during this month to learn more about Asian American and Pacific Islander heritage and work to combat racism and promote inclusion. Proclaimed by the Mayor of the City Council of the City of Emeryville at a regular meeting held Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Members, any comments? Member Pryforce?
Thank you for that proclamation, and I just want to acknowledge that the city of Emeryville, very similar to Black History Month, we could be doing more to honor some of the symbolic representation of our Asian American heritage, our residents and workers of Asian descent. And Asian is a really big category, but for those who identify as Asian, that things like acknowledging Lunar New Year and other holidays in our city hall in terms of decorations and also on social media. So there's definitely more work that we could be doing and should be doing to honor that proclamation. Thank you.
Any other comments from any other members? All right. Item 4.1, presentation from Bart's Safe and Clean Plan. We have a few representatives. Welcome. Hello, Director Simon.
Thank you so much, everyone. My colleagues are going to help me because they're the smart ones. And I'm so excited to be in front of this board. I want to take a point of privilege. And past mayor, you brought me to this city. I'm a resident of Emeryville, and you are absolutely right. It is safe, it is beautiful, it is clean, it is walkable. And as someone who solely relies on public transportation, where have I been for 47 years? You told me.
I told you.
And you were exactly right. I can't tell you, before I start this presentation, how beautiful it's been to raise a very, very opinionated teenager next to a dog park with young kids playing at all hours, it seems like, of the morning and of the evening, and to be able to walk to get food and to be able to walk to literally the sea. This is the best city in the Bay Area, I want to say. And I want to thank you and all my friends on this council and who work for the great city of Emeryville for providing such a beautiful place for people to raise their families. It's a very dog-friendly city. I'm getting used to that. But I love being a member of this community. And Mayor, as a fellow single mother, literally we are neighbors. It is an honor to be in front of this council today. So we do have a very brief presentation. And before I get into it, I want to introduce my colleagues, and they're going to be taking on some of that with me.
Good evening, council members. Henry Simons, Principal Government and Community Relations Representative for BART. I cover from West Oakland Station through downtown Oakland to Richmond Station and also Rockridge.
Welcome back, Henry.
And my name is Bradley Dunn. I'm the manager of local government and community relations. I work with a team of fine folks like Henry to cover all community and local government relations throughout the BART district and the 2 other counties that we operate in, San Mateo and Santa Clara County.
Welcome.
Great. So if they're really here, when I get stuck, they're going to cover for me. They know all things BART. I'm really excited to provide a very quick presentation and want to take any questions. And again, our staff are just consummate professionals and have done such a great job in working. We literally work in 5 counties in the Bay Area. We have a 5-county system. Only 3 counties are represented on our BART board. There are 9 members of our BART board that represent San Francisco, Alameda County, and Contra Costa County. We are currently right now in District 7, which is represented by me. I represent San Francisco, Emeryville, and really the southern border of Contra Costa County. So I just want to, I'm not sure if we're ready to go to the PowerPoint. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we are. We've got it up. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Fantastic. So this presentation was really developed to give you all just a quick overview of what's shifting at BART. You hear a lot about our institution in the news, and there are a lot of folks, a lot of neighbors in this community who utilize, again, the Emory shuttle to BART every single day to work, live, and play. And so I just wanted to give you some updates. And so I'm going to read straight from the PowerPoint, and stop me at any time. It's about 6.5 minutes of presentation. So over the last 2 years, our BART Board of Directors, our management staff have deeply focused on being very keen in how we keep our data and how we relate what we're doing literally in real time to members of local government in the 5 counties and in Sacramento. So I just want to provide you with a couple of stats. We came here today to do a safe and clean presentation because really that is where our focus is. We're trying to bring folks back to our downtowns. We're trying to get riders back on our trains. We are really holding ourselves responsible for bringing the spine of the Bay Area. And that said, we have lauded a safe and clean plan to address some of the issues that many of your residents in this city have brought to us. In terms of our ridership, over 31% of BART riders live in households with incomes under $50,000. So 30% of our ridership is extremely low income. So when folks are talking about, we might just have to figure out what we can do with our BART, we know that to have a safe and equitable Bay Area, low-income riders are choosing public transportation. 44% of BART riders do not have a vehicle. Those are folks like myself and also folks who choose not to have a vehicle, but many folks, 44% of our folks are wholly reliant on Bay Area rapid transit, local public transportation, and TNCs to get around. That's grocery store, that's hospitals, that's chemotherapy appointments, that's getting their kids to childcare to and fro. It is an essential part of who we are and what we do. 67% of our BART riders are non-white. Low income folks, disabled folks, and again, 70% of the folks who are riding BART in the Bay Area are people of color. 55 years ago, the founders of our system didn't intend for our demographics to look like this, but I am so proud that we can say that BART is delivering diverse communities all over the Bay, and folks are relying on BART post-COVID. So our schedules, I want to go to the next slide. Our schedules, they have shifted somewhat post-COVID. We are working so hard to make sure that people are, again, going to work. We know our downtowns are deeply stressed in this moment, but folks are also living, working, and playing in the Bay Area, and our downtown and our nightlife. We're trying to encourage folks to get back into those spaces. Our schedules, as you will see, and if you're riding BART, John, we got to get on BART together, are encouraging both leisure, again, and non-work activities by increasing our night and weekend services. You all remember during COVID, our headways were upwards of 30 minutes long. Our headways are now less than 20 minutes. All of our trains, every single train is now a new train. We call this fleet the fleet of the future. Some of you attended us retiring our old cars a few weeks ago. It is truly a new era. Some of us growing up in the Bay Area remember BART. BART had carpet. BART, remember, Miss Courtney?
Yes.
BART had those chairs that were meant to feel like airports. There's a long, storied history of the design of BART and why, but we are moving into the future, and the goal of the Bay Area Rapid Transit District is to become part of a global family, pushing to be a world-class transit system. Next slide, please. Something that I'm extremely proud of. In the last 8 years, our directors, our management staff, and of course, our first responders and law enforcement partners, both at BART within the Bay Area, have worked together for BART to achieve what we believe is a national model for progressive public safety. Our commitment to public safety is core in everything we do. We've learned so much, both from advocates, law enforcement professionals, and folks all over the country, but mostly our riders who have told us what they needed and what they've wanted. We've doubled in the last 3 years our police presence on BART system-wide, meaning our officers are no longer in their cars. Those of us who've grown up around BART used to go into BART, you would see BART folks in an SUV. Our officers are riding the trains. They're riding the trains to help increase visibility of BART riders, BART public safety officers, and of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about our ambassador programs. But folks have said to us time and time again in our surveys, they actually want to see the employees that they're paying for. BART police are now walking the trains within our 5-county system. We've increased patrols to deter crime, but also we want to be clear, crime happens everywhere, in all public spaces. And we want to make sure that we're aiding in the apprehension of suspects. Prior to my role at BART, I worked very closely for over 2 decades with the anti-trafficking community. And BART police officers, Oakland police officers, Emeryville Police Department as well, has been working, again, over many years to deter human trafficking. Having a physical presence is not just about violent crime. It's really about letting folks know that BART is an institution that is deeply committed to safety. We've increased patrols, but we're also running shorter trains so that our officers, our ambassadors, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and our community intervention specialists have a complete eye on what's going on. We know that folks are not riding BART like they used to prior to the pandemic, so running shorter trains, not 10-car trains, it provides us an opportunity to understand what's going on, to be of help when we are needed. Lastly, on the commitment to public safety, for the first few months of 2024, we've seen an 18% decrease in holds. I know. Sir, when you're trying to get to a meeting in San Francisco or you're going to Contra Costa County and there's police activity, we're trying to cut that down. And typically, you know, I want to be very honest. We are dealing with a fentanyl crisis that has hit our trains. We have specialists, not just armed police officers. We have ambassadors and community intervention specialists working to ensure that folks are getting help in some of the worst days of their lives. We're not just kicking them off and putting them back on trains when we leave. We're actually working with local service providers within the 5 counties to deal with overdoses, the overdose deaths, but also referrals to organizations, including housing services. I want to go to the commitment to our fare gates. A lot of folks are worrying and talking about the fare gates. BART has worked extremely hard with our local partners, both here in the Bay Area and also in Sacramento and the federal government, to update our system. BART had reached the end of its life, essentially, in terms of our hardware, in terms of our security systems. We have launched a new fare gate program, and the first fare gates actually were put up at my station, West Oakland Station. With other transit departments all over the country, we are in alliance that we're trying to defer fare evasion as one of the many ways to update our system. The new gates are taller and they're stronger. We have seen in our test that fare evasion is down in West Oakland. We also think that with this new model that we're testing at my station, that there's improved accessibility also for disabled folks. There are 8 stations coming under for our next phases of fare gate installation, and I want to let you all know that those are Civic Center, Montgomery, Powell Street, 24th Street, SFO, that's the airport, Fruitvale, our Richmond station, and Antioch. And the fare gates will begin being replaced in summer 2024. We wanted to test out West Oakland so that folks understood what was happening. We did a ton of community outreach. I worked very closely with Councilmember Carol Fife's office and other members of the community to get a lot of feedback as one we both installed and also our day-to-day data collection. And we found that, of course, a lot of folks don't love change, but a lot of folks have been really, really eager to see what's gonna come out on the other side. And we're trying to make sure that we have a safer BART. Next slide. Want to talk about Clipper? Actually, I'm gonna take this slide because I'm really excited about it. So we're talking a lot about ending fare evasion and creating a safer BART. Council members, I really want to encourage you to reach out to our office because, as you may know, the MTC is working with BART and other service providers within our 27-member public transportation network within the Bay Area to provide an opportunity for low-income riders to ride BART for 50% off. We have to do a better job. My agency, and I want to implore you all to help us to let your constituents know that if they are low income, they can qualify for 50% off of BART. And to make sure that we continue this program, we need folks to be able to apply. Clipper Start is amazing, and you see what's on the slide. I don't have to read it, but whatever we can do to encourage our residents, our low-income residents, their children, our elders and disabled people, those are separate programs, but adding a low-income fare discount of 50%, we believe is revolutionary. As a single mother prior to me getting in this position, it was very difficult to pay for 2 children and myself every single morning to go to and fro. You also want to let your families know that young people over the age of 11 also get a 50% discount. That's a new discount. It wasn't there just 10 years ago. But again, having single parents, having low-income folks on our board of directors, we were able to push for some of these policies. So I want to make sure you all get all the information that you need about these fare discounts to give to your constituents on your websites, but also on the Emeryville website, Mayor. That would be good. That would be amazing. In terms of, we can go to the next slide. Long-term sustainability, next slide. I want to talk about the fiscal cliff. It's definitely something on the minds of most folks, and we have a regional measure that we're hoping that your council will be looking at very, very closely. But I actually want to bring up my colleagues to talk about the regional measure. I want to talk about the fiscal cliff. I am a glass full type person, and I believe we'll get through this period, but it's going to take a lot of advocacy on the local, regional, and federal level to ensure that we save public transportation in the Bay Area. Remember, we're only 4 years out. 4 years out from 2020. There's so much recovery to be done, and we're right in the middle of this moment where we can actually choose to make our cities lively again, knowing that we are in a very interesting space, but I definitely believe that if we can come together as local government, we can encourage our residents to support public transportation. Staff.
So I'd like to speak for a moment about the approaching fiscal cliff. So prior to the pandemic, BART operations were overwhelmingly funded by fare revenue. But we would recover what we have called fare recovery, about 60 to 70%, which means that that's the percentage of our operating revenue that we're paid for by people tapping a Clipper card and getting on BART. That model made us uniquely vulnerable to a ridership decline that was brought about by the pandemic. Despite being seen as the height of fiscal responsibility before the pandemic, and if you look at other systems that had a more diverse basket of revenues coming from taxes and other types of fees, those systems have done much better in a post-COVID world. The model that we have is just no longer viable. We have been very lucky that we've gotten substantial funding from the state and federal and regional governments, but that one-time emergency aid is expected to be exhausted in April 2026. We've been able to take some cost-saving measures to push that out several months, but the reality is that beginning in fiscal year 2027, BART is going to be carrying $300 million plus annual deficits for the foreseeable future. What that means is that that's not something that we can solve with short-term fixes or one-time accounting procedures. That means we need stable, reliable, long-term revenue to make sure that we can continue to provide the services that the Bay Area relies on, that downtowns rely on, that cities rely on, and that residents rely on. If we could go to the next slide. So the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is sponsoring a bill with Senators Wahab and Wiener. It's SB 1031, which will allow the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, or MTC, to put a regional measure on the ballot as early as November 2026 and also later. That measure would generate approximately $1.5 billion in annual revenue that would be focused on filling the budget deficits and gaps that transit agencies across the Bay Area have, and creating additional funding to transform transit and make transit improvements that would make the Bay Area better connected and improve agency coordination. There's also going to be a study of transit agency consolidation and require reforms to improve the regional transportation network. BART has taken a support if amended position on the bill, which means that we are working with MTC and stakeholders on various amendments that we think are important to improve the bill, but we're committed to ensure its passage because we believe that it is the path forward for viable, long-term, sustainable funding. So that is really crucial for our ability to provide that service moving forward. And my colleague, Henry Simons, is going to discuss an upcoming project that we are using some of our previous bond funding for. That's a really big project for the region with the next slide.
Hi, council members. I just want to talk briefly about a major BART construction project we have coming up that's going to be starting the weekend of June 22nd and 23rd. So in 2016, BART passed Measure RR, which was our big measure to rebuild the system. So we're replacing decades-old equipment and making sure our system is ready to go for another 50 years. One thing we have to do is replace the many, many switches throughout the BART system that help allow BART operators to move trains from line to line. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of switches between MacArthur and 19th Street stations, really at the core of our BART system where many of our lines come together. So each switch takes about a full weekend to replace. So we're going to be doing 17 weekend-long bus bridges between this coming June and mid-2026. So during a bus bridge from Friday night to Monday morning, train service doesn't operate. and trains were replaced with buses. We're actually quite good at this. We've done this throughout the system since we passed Measure RR in 2016, but it will definitely be very disruptive to riders. So we just wanted to come and make sure you're aware of the project. And we're coordinating very closely with our colleagues at AC Transit to offer the bus bridge service, and we expect it to go well, but we know it will be very disruptive to riders. So we'll ask you to make sure all Emeryville residents are aware of the project, and it's included in all your newsletters as well. Thank you.
We'll make sure, council members and mayor, that you and vice mayor, that you all have this presentation. I want to be clear, this service interruption is going to be felt. It is not something I'm very happy about, but it has to be done. It's not like New York where there's a spiral ecosystem of trains. We have a spine. And thank those urban planners 50 years ago. I know folks are going to be mad at me, but they can thank the urban planners 50 years ago. But what we want to make sure is folks know when this construction is happening or when these upgrades are happening, really, and it's for the lifeblood and the future of BART. A lot of our equipment is older than most folks in this room. So we really are going to have to do everything we can do in this allotted time to make these upgrades. I wanted to end, and you may have questions, the slides that I rushed through, I wanted to save for the end. We have more than doubled our cleaning staff. There are clearly issues with every public transportation system in this country, especially in urban centers, around homelessness, around drug use. I'm not going to gaslight you and say that those issues are not still there. At the end of the day, passengers in the Bay Area do expect a clean, accountable, and affordable ride. They need to know if there's something that happens, there are people they can call. But updating the way in which we address these issues, for us, it's just been to go in right there and deal with it. Our trains are cleaner. They're more hospitable. Our staff are getting training on how to deal with the realities of biohazards. But also, overall, we're trying to make sure that new folks come back on our system, come to our system, and that folks who have abandoned the system come back on and actually see a brand new BART. If you can go to this slide on ambassadors and our progressive policing, I want to end here as well. In addition to seeing our armed police officers, our wonderful, wonderful, we have a wonderful brass of officers that are extremely diverse. I also want to say that because we have implemented over the last few years an ambassador program and a community intervention specialist program where we literally have social workers and community members who are literally under the POA. They are working with our police department. They are directed by our wonderful chief, Chief Franklin, and his team. We have decreased response time from what now is, we know the Bay Area standard, 19 to 29 minutes, to 4.7 minutes throughout a 5-county system. We believe that our response time is some of the best in the state, if not the country, in urban centers for any metropolitan transportation system. We have proven and we will continue to prove that as we get better, our smart on crime approaches of making sure that we have unarmed folks and armed folks and community members together, united in the fact that we all want a clean and safe BART. When things are bad and folks do use that BART app or call 911, there are armed officers that are there to serve. And when folks have questions or if there's somebody having the worst day of their lives, we know that that response doesn't require a badge and a gun. I'm extremely proud of what we've done. And I know that we have so much more to do, but we want to be really a part of this Emeryville family to encourage our folks to try BART again, and would love to take any questions now or anytime, either one-on-one or with our office. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Director Simon. Members, any questions or comments? You have a comment?
I have a few comments. First, I just want to thank you so much for making time in your schedule, Director Simon, to be here with us. Obviously, it's good to know that you didn't have to go very far.
No.
So it's lovely to have you here this evening. I just wanted, for the purposes of the public watching at home, to elevate a few things that you and your staff said that I think really matter. One, I think by virtue of you standing here, it's important to first acknowledge how much representation matters. In my time on the Transportation Commission, in my last 3 years as the chair there, and even in my time on the Air District Board, Something I often frequently saw was that there are people who have very negative views of public transportation, and they don't ride it.
That's right.
But they oftentimes we can get stuck with transit boards that elect people who don't even use the systems that they are governing. And so the fact that you have a lifelong journey with public transportation, it really colors the leadership you've given us at BART. So I want to thank you for that. Second, I think a really important thing to note that I'd love the public to just settle with is, as a person who also doesn't drive a car, bikes to 8 minutes and 10 seconds is my PR to West Oakland, and I can be to the Castro and back in less than an hour for a haircut. So I know how to run the system. But BART is the place for all the things people have complained about BART. It is the signs of the symptoms of what cities don't do. It is like people who are unhoused in BART are not unhoused because of BART. BART is a place where many people end up because we don't do our job on other fronts. And so for whatever people think about transit, it's usually the product of the decisions they and their elected officials make or don't make in their home jurisdictions to adequately address social problems that we have. And I want to commend BART especially for two things. One, yes, the noticeable difference in cleaning the system and the repetitive nature of that work has definitely transformed many people's opinions recently about that. So I want to commend the leadership at BART for that. But I also just want to say you're really gifted with a very strong suite of directors. So when I think of you, Director Dufty, Director Saltzman, I've gone with Director Saltzman to DC on occasions to lobby on transportation funding and issues. And BART is just really well represented right now. And I know a lot of those people are leaving BART's board. So I want to thank and recognize BART's leadership for what it's done to actually put us in the position we're at. Because as Bradley noted, Farebox Recovery, you're the national leader before the COVID pandemic. And for everybody who wants to say, transit doesn't need subsidies and this and that, BART was the model for that. But as was noted, one of the things about not having a diverse array of revenue streams is that you're susceptible to individual types of problems, similar to this city being over-reliant for many years on sales tax revenue, going up and down with the economy. So I just really want to commend you in your work, and it's really important that we have a regional measure that will ensure transportation for people who need it. It's not an option for them. They need it. So just very grateful for this presentation. And I want to commend also your staff. I mean, I know Bradley and Henry, you have a fantastic staff, and really just very happy with what BART's doing. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you, council member, and I want to say that BART is definitely a family. We're 4,000 strong. And to the last thing that I would just put in your spirits and souls, there will be folks who say we should just, cut 10% of BART. We understand, because of really your explanation, your analysis, which is true, our revenue structure has been very reliant on fares. And what we now see is a structural deficit. There's no letting 5 people go and then you figure out how to comp $300 million. This is a system that literally has been created for the vitality of the Bay Area, and by hell or high water, wherever the folks who are transitioning off the BART board to go to other spaces, we have all a lifelong commitment to honoring the new folks who come in, so you all know, and supporting them as new directors, but also advocating and working and being dogged in our favor to make sure that our trains continue to run and our staff are well-equipped and well-resourced to be able to really join the world, Japan and Hong Kong and Singapore and other spaces, of having a world-class transit system. Thank you all so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Members, any other comments for the director or BART staff? Member Pryforce?
Thank you for an amazing presentation and presence. I saw Chief West from a corner taking some notes. So you've given him some competition.
Randall always throws down. I'm not going to compete with that man. He's too good. He's too good.
I'm from New York, from Brooklyn, so I'm used to that ecosystem of what we call the iron horse. But my first experience in the Bay Area in 2010 was, I think, after I believe the court had made a decision around Oscar Grant, that incident, and I actually moved right into Fruitvale.
Yeah.
Then a year later, I was in Emeryville.
Yep.
A lot's happened. You know, we have progressive DAs, thankfully, as an outcry from the public, and we have diverse police leadership, thankfully. With the increased police presence, and of course, we've seen a lot of activity, especially my way back hometown in New York, fare evasion, deterrence. I saw on the slide around the ambassador program, and I thought about that. Well, I believe it was a New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, where it was late at night when the Oscar Grant incident happened. So I don't know if the ambassador will be around that time, but can you share with the public I don't know if it's in your code of conduct, or how can we prevent another? Yeah.
I am actually so proud of our team. I mean, I was part of the community that pushed the BART Board of Directors and the institution to do something that they had never done, is just take accountability for racism within our system, both that our writers endured pre and post grant, and also that our employees endure. Systems are made up of people that make decisions that have real impacts on people's lives. It was a community that fought and demanded that the BART Board institute an office, essentially an auditor's office. We have a police independent auditor, Russell Bloom, who was amazing, who has staff. All complaints that come through our system are reviewed by an independent police auditor that reports directly to the board of directors. That is a board-appointed officer that is not underneath our police department. That's critical. That accountability space is critical. Russell is an attorney, and he has a team of investigators. They are investigating issues that come from writers, as is our police department. And so there are two bodies of investigators, and having an independent auditor is extremely important. Secondly, we have a commission of sorts that is appointed by individual BART directors to oversee those complaint processes. Essentially, we have our own police commission. Community fought for that. In terms of, we've had now 3 chiefs post-grant. And our last chief, who recently retired, who was a Latino, 25 years from literally a young man at 18, made it up to chief, was promoted 3.5 years ago, recently retired. He and I, when I was the president in 2020, we were very focused on calling out the racism in our system, even post-grant, and developing a progressive policing unit with top brass officers leading that unit. Chief Emeryville, who's now the chief of San Leandro, was our first deputy chief over that department, a Black woman who helped design with some of the nation's experts a unit that was truly about what it meant to actually do community policing within a transit system. So yes, 8 years ago, I know I can't get political, but I got to take some credit. When I campaigned on the ambassador program that had never been seen on a transit system of its kind in the country, and we said we would hire and train community organizers and workers, a lot of Black women, a lot of Asian American women, a lot of aunties, a lot of folks who know community and know how to talk to people would be lined up and working both individually in teams and with our armed officers. They are approaching folks who are dealing with quality of life issues first, not our officers. We also brought on a whole new team of folks about a year after we brought on our first ambassador team to deal with the real issues that lay folks who are not LCSWs and police officers didn't know how to deal with. And really, those are mental health issues. Folks are, you're absolutely right, Mayor, on our trains because they're not being served or housed or closed by cities. But we are a transportation institution, but we couldn't ignore the reality of what was happening. So having folks both community ambassadors and CITs, all armed with Narcan, all trained like our officers, our full fleet of officers in de-escalation. We are committed to doing the right thing. Miss Wanda Johnson, who is Oscar Grant's mother, and a sea of other parents and other family members continue to advise our institution and train our institution's officers on how to do the right thing. We are post-certified. We are one of the nation's leaders in, again, holding police officers accountable, but more importantly, hiring and training the right folks. I did, and I will continue to support our officers being paid a bit above median, because when you pay people what they deserve, you train them and you hold them accountable, that is how they actually abide by the rules and regulations of their positions, whether they be sworn or administrative. And I'm very, very happy with where we are. And of course, we have to keep that pressure on and keep the support on to a chief who wants to do the right thing.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Member Pryforce?
Yes, this is for my seniors in Emeryville. The major construction, in terms of the communication, we're going to have the presentation, and so the city will probably make a social media announcement, but we could be better when it comes to communicating to our folks. Have y'all also thought about connecting with local papers like Oakland Side?
Yes, we have. So I want to be, this is so important because folks will come to our stations that don't look at Twitter, like my mother, that do not look at Instagram, that are not reading the Chronicle. So there's going to be, we have a whole communications effort really designed, again, for this temporary weekend closures. It's not going on forever, but it will have impacts. Yes, we're going to do deep social engagement on all of the radio stations, Spanish language, Tagalog. We're going to make sure that folks are hearing and understanding. Of course, we're going to be doing social media. We're also going to make sure that we have staff and wayfinding at all hours while we're in operation on the weekend. So you go to the MacArthur station, there's going to be a bus. And if you miss it, it'll be there in 7 to 10 minutes. We're going to be operating our system. Our system is not closing down. And you all have ridden on bus bridges when there's police activity or their power has been out. A lot of our BART riders are used to this. So we're doing everything that we can to make sure that local officials, local medians, within media, both social and paid, have all the information that they need. And we know that there's going to be a majority of folks, especially elders, especially folks who are speaking or monolingual or multilingual but aren't reading our stuff, that there are going to be staff there to guide them. Not just our folks behind the walls, our ticket takers and those folks, but really folks who are out there to aid in the research efforts. I said research. We're doing a lot of research.
Outreach,
In the outreach efforts, folks will know where to go and how to get there. But one of the things I think we do need to do, especially we have a big senior community in Emeryville. We have senior buildings, all over. We have multi-languages that are spoken here. I want to make sure that every single email box of all of our electeds here get all the information that they need to put on their own sites, and that the communication department here at the Emeryville City Hall gets the information so we can put it on their sites. But whatever we can be doing a little different, please pick up the phone, let us know around those efforts.
Thank you, Director. I just wanted to note a couple things when you said that BART was created to add to the vitality of the Bay Area. I really think that sums it up in just how critical we saw in this presentation, just how critical BART is, just not for folks living with disabilities, folks that are living with lower incomes. It's critical to our economic development, our educational systems, workforce development. Public transit is critical as we think about addressing climate change. And so we just thank you for your work, for your representation. Thank you to staff. Thank you for all that you do. And we look forward to supporting how BART in the future. So thank you.
The tagline for BART is "Let's go." Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much. All right, members, we're on to item 12. Where am I? Item 12.1, resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville adopting the Public Art Committee recommendation to select 5 artists. Yeah, and we have a presentation.
I'm Amber Evans, Community Development Coordinator for the City of Emeryville. Thank you for hearing this presentation tonight. There's been a series of efforts to bring this to you tonight. A selection panel made up of 2 outside art consultants, Sorel Sue, who is representing the Rotten City Cultural District, and Chandra Cerrito, and then Vicky Josul of the PAC, and Mike Roberts of staff, all independently ranked 45 applicants to this. So a very successful call with artists both locally and throughout the nation. Some of those were people who threw their resume onto Cafe. They really didn't look at the call, and we really didn't need to put a lot of time and effort into that. But the panelists ranked all of them, and about 12 rows for them to come together and review. Of those 12, after reviewing the demands of the call, and I'd like to just review them because they're not in my presentation, the artist teams, and we were presuming mostly it would be teams, though there are some individuals that have all these skills. We were looking for a graphic designer, someone who could do iconography, not actually produce it, but provide it print ready, integrated with a theme that would then be represented in the 4 plazas that are considered within the 40th Streetscape project. So this is an art call to be the additions and cherry on the top, as it were, but also integrated with the design that is moving forward. So at least a touch in each of the plazas, and then at least 12 locations throughout the first phase of the project in the streetscape, where something designed through the artist effort would be attached to streetscape improvements. And this was just the image on your screen was just an attachment to the RFP to let people know of some of the art that exists within the existing space. Next slide, please. The 5 finalists that are semifinalists that move forward were ranked by all, discussed by all of the teams, and some that were originally scored moved up after we thought about how they could meet each of those 3 components that I just described. Overall, there are 2 teams coming up are recommended from Southern California, 2 from Oregon, and 1 very local, your former colleague, Scott Donahue, and a team. He really got a team that, as the panelists said, really read the RFP, responding to all the components. If I could have the next slide. I'm going to just show you each of the 5 teams that were recommended and then ask for your recommendation for the conceptual design proposals, which is, I'll describe them at the end, what would be the next steps of this process is. Addie Boswell and Matt Cartwright are out of Portland, Oregon. She's a conceptual artist, a storyteller. She focuses on the graphics. Matt Cartwright is a metal designer, a fabricator. He does sculptural work. Next slide. They've collaborated together, and I'm focusing on these 4 elements because this is what the panel was really looking at, were these teams that had worked together in the past and could demonstrate that they would be able to do that effectively? Did they have recent commissions that were reflective of the scale of this project? Were their methods something that could work in an outdoor space? And had they demonstrated that? And did they have a philosophy that was consistent with the request for proposals? And I think as people often were talking about this project, about how it would add to the definition of Emeryville, the fun or the whimsy or the joy were some of the things, and the attractiveness of a multimodal space. I won't go into the specifics of their methods, but I just wanted to point out that each of these slides have those highlighted. This is an example of a project in a streetscape location. Next slide. And I'll just go through these very quickly. You can just, as my hand goes, you can, if I stop to talk, you can just stop. But an example of somebody using conceptual artwork to an outdoor streetscape. Next slide. Matt Cartwright's work in seat walls. Next slide. Fabrication on a building. Next slide. One of the things that we're talking about is the possibility of attaching to street lights or poles, something that's maybe consistent with like iconography. This is an example of that concept. Next slide. Seat walls, next slide. And just different multimodal expressions of art. Second team, Urban Rock Design. This is a firm that for 25 years has been working together. She's an architect with an extensive practice in public input, is a director of civic engagement at a university. Her partner is a painter and sculptor, and they do projects of this scale throughout the country. Next slide. The example on the left is a work where they placed elements in front of sculpture, and if you stepped in it, you saw this overlaid with the sculpture that was in the background. They are working on a 1.4-mile roadway improvement. As Sean Josevito said, they kind of checked all the boxes in terms of both their methods and their philosophy and their past practice. Next slide. Next slide. Both light and interactive elements. Next slide. This was seen from the panel as an example of maybe some of the iconography that could be used while developing a public outreach campaign. Next slide. A larger sculpture. Next slide. Interactive plaza type work and a way to have interaction with already installed artwork. Simple and easy. Next slide. Maybe this is a pole element. Next slide. She then has her own studio. She was unique in being an individual, but looking at the display of the work that she had that integrated iconography, sculpture, and light, there was interest in seeing if she could, as she says she can, meet all those elements as an individual. Next slide. And she's got a commission in Kansas working with multi-paneled color sculptures on a pathway with lighting, very similar to this scope. Her methods are to develop sculptural work with cutout coverage, and she speaks to a deeper understanding of cultural heritage using memorabilia and having a real outreach process and developing a website to think about the multiple identities of the space she's working in. Next slide. Examples of her work, some of that iconography that we might be alluding to in the sculpture itself. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. As you can see, there's written work within those sculptural elements, light, bigger sculptural work. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Scott Donahue, as you all know, prior colleague, is working with Leslie Gasparti, who is a graphic designer, and John Northam Roberts, who is a landscape architect. And Scott is a sculptor with 26 permanent public and private projects. And so the panel was very excited about how they could all work together. John Northam Roberts was really thought of as the person with the public outreach component of this team. Next slide. And they've worked together on specific projects in Berkeley, both as all three of them and as some of the individual members. They've worked on poetry within the streetscape, installations within streetscape projects together, and they spoke to really communicating what Emeryville is and the balance between an urban city with the right mixture of culture and nature in the projects. And so everyone kind of thought about how they would tell the story of Emeryville. Next slide. Examples of Scott's work. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And then these are examples of Leslie's work. Next slide, although in concert with the others in that project. And this is her work specifically. Next slide. So really the only one that said, here's what I offer as a graphic designer, and really understand what that aspect of this project would be. Next slide. And then this is the landscape designer and Scott's combined project on Addison in Berkeley. Next slide. Landscape, this is all the landscapes. And he noted, back to this, said, that a lot of his work is with public artists and public art integration within his landscape treatments. Next slide. The final team are they're called the Germlust informally, but they're Pete Goldlust and Melanie Garamond, and they're a married couple out of Oregon, and they started in graphic design, so have that skill set, and then moved into public art projects. Next slide. They've done long fences, sidewalk inlays, have worked into both groundwork and on the sides of buildings, and I think they note well that they collaborate with others who know how to build things properly. And a lot of artists will be bringing in other fabricators. And so I'd be remiss to say that these teams are the limit of who would be working on the projects. Many of them will be bringing in fabricators depending on the proposals they develop. And they speak to honoring the community and bringing joy. So I think this is my last slide, maybe, or no, please, next slide. Work in a shelter with seating and all the integrated components of a bus shelter, prior work, iconography. Next slide. Next slide. Both metal work and mural work together. Next slide. Next slide. Some of the pole work that we've been anticipating might be involved in this. Next slide. Bus shelter again. Next slide. Conceptual work with plazas. Next slide. Iconography and the detailedness of this proposal and the next. Next slide. Next slide. The panel really appreciated that this is recent work that they've done and the sophistication of it. There was some question about the playfulness versus the childlike quality, and this example really indicated where they can rise to, and some interest in how that plays out in this project and what's asked for. Next slide. Recent multimedia work. And so these 5 teams are diverse in the media that they use, diverse in perhaps the conceptual approach they would take to the project. The panel was very excited that you would get, that the city would get a very diverse set of what the possibility could be in this project, and believe that each of these teams had the capability within their team and skill set to realize all components of the project. That was kind of an open question when we released the RFP. Would we get teams that could do it all, or would we need to separate that? And the panel felt comfortable recommending to the committee and yourselves that these teams could do that. So the intent, we've done this with prior commissions of public art, is to bring the 5 of them out to Emeryville to tour the site, pay them for the travel to do that in early June, give them $4,000 to develop a conceptual proposal that would be presented out here in City Hall, would be put on online. There'd be a survey that would be done for comparing those teams and getting the feedback of the community and yourselves before that went back to the selection panel and then back to the PAC for selection of a finalist from these 5 submittals. So we've done this before at the Marina, Point Emery, some other, the Gateway on Shellmount Street as well. So my request tonight is to recommend is that you move forward with authorizing the city manager to enter those conceptual design proposals. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Amber. Members, any questions, or is there a motion? Or a comment? Oh, thank you. It's been a long day. Any clarifying questions for our call for public comment? Member Pryforce.
Thank you, Amber, for your presentation. Great designs. I definitely was leaning towards, there was this one slide. Can we actually go back? I thought it was really interesting. That kind of looked like it was, I believe it was the second or third slide right at the beginning with the first team. I thought it was really interesting because the light sort of fixture seemed very sort of Basquiat inspired. That one, yeah, no, yeah, right. Next, that one, yeah, that one, yeah. So anything that, like, yeah, of course, that doesn't seem like corporate art. Doesn't seem like it's just nebulous. It feels like that there's something happening in the city that people feel reflected in the art. Is great, and I like some elements from the last team as well. Some of the concerns I think with art that I've heard in the past, public art, is around maintenance and our city's responsibility for maintenance. Has that been a part of the sort of proposal that our projects have as little maintenance as possible, especially as we're facing a deficit?
There is both their selection as a criteria is the maintainability, so they'll be ranked among themselves about how well they would serve and be cost effective in an urban environment. Also, the public art fund has an allocation to maintenance, and the contract requirements will demand of them that they provide clear guidelines and materials and substances for the maintenance. And certainly throughout this process, and the site walkthrough that I mentioned would be with Public Works staff to ensure that we understood what that attachment was. We were not putting them in places that would add costs to the maintenance of other elements in the project.
Any other clarifying questions? Nope. Now it's time for public comment. Any member of the public that would like to comment on this item can do so now for 2 minutes. Going once, going twice. Seeing no members of the public wishing to make comment, public comment is now closed. Members, I turn it back to you for deliberation or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. The roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders? Aye. Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch?
Aye. Thank you again, Amber. Item 12.2, resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Emeryville and the Alameda County Fire Department regarding fire and emergency services for the term beginning July 1st, 2024 through July 30th, 2029. Wow. Hello, Mr. City Manager. You got up there quick.
Hello. Hello, Madam Mayor, and hello, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to stand at this podium and present our request that you support the resolution to between the City of Emeryville and the Alameda County Fire Department. With us here tonight, we have Chief McDonald from the Alameda County Fire Department and our local fire chief, Randall West, both here. Also online, the city did hire some consultants to help us assess this whole arrangement. Mike Oliver and Brian Kelly from Strategic Advisor Services are here. So I'll go through this presentation and then maybe Chief McDonald can make some remarks as well. Next slide, please. Okay, as background, the Alameda County Fire Department serves more than just Emeryville. They serve all of unincorporated Alameda County except for Fairview. They also serve the cities of San Leandro, Dublin, Newark, and Union City, as well as ourselves. And in addition to that, they serve the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and the Lawrence Livermore National Lab. We've been contracting with Alameda County Fire since 2012, and they have been an outstanding partner of ours. They have been responsive, they have been supportive, they have been engaged. Both Chief McDonald and Chief West are easy to get a hold of. The firefighters at the stations are easy to work with. So I want to just start off here by thanking them for their partnership. Next slide, please. We have two fire stations here in Emeryville, Station 34, which is in the marina on Powell Street, and Station 35 on 63rd, excuse me, 63rd and Hollis. Each of these fire stations has 24/7 coverage with 3 personnel, a firefighter, an engineer, and a captain, one of whom is a licensed paramedic. And then we have 3 different rotations at each station. So each has 9 people assigned to it for a total of 18. We also have a code compliance officer here, as well as we had a deputy fire marshal, but now we're going to have a plan checker too, and I'll explain that. So, next slide. It's a snapshot of the services that the county's fire department provides for us, ranging from fire suppression to emergency medical response. Hazardous materials response is thankfully not frequently needed thing, but could be catastrophic and very important that they're able to respond to that. They also have both technical and water rescue capabilities. They do fire investigations, and that's all on sort of the response side. And then they do support also our community development department with plan review and consultation, fire code services, inspections, and then also community education. One of the things about being a contract fire department is wanting to also have a sense of community and a sense of ownership and a sense of partnership. And I want to really commend Chief West for his work in that regard. He has made sure that we have staff personnel at the many different events that we have, as well as doing an outstanding job putting on the Chief Is My Belief event every year. And I also want to compliment him for his commitment to diversity and inclusion within the fire department. That's really an important thing, and he has worked very hard also with, obviously, Chief McDonald's support, so I thank them both for that. Next slide. Wanted to highlight some of the more important aspects as well in terms of response times. This information is all in your packet, as well as additional information that the fire department has provided. So these three standards: emergency response, first alarm, fire response, and EMS response, obviously all critical to life safety. And since the beginning of this contract with us, they have either met or exceeded the standard of arriving within 7 minutes for emergency response, 11 minutes for first alarm fires, and 8.5 minutes for EMS, 90% of the time or better. And then 8.5 minutes for EMS. Next slide. The contract that is before you is essentially unchanged from the previous contract, with a couple of exceptions. This is one of them. We've had a deputy fire marshal assigned to us, and what has happened is that it's been just about impossible to fill that position. Our deputy fire marshal is no longer with us, and so the fire department has instead proposed that we have a plan checker 2 who can do everything that the deputy fire marshal could do, with one exception, and that is the fire investigations. So we also have in the contract that we would have fire investigation services provided by them through another partner within the Alameda County Fire Department. And instead of having a deputy fire marshal, we'd have a plan checker 2. It's a small cost savings to the city because that plan checker 2 position is less expensive than the deputy fire marshal, and we essentially get the same services. Next slide. So importantly, here are the costs. The first 2 years, that's the current year, 2023, and next year, 2024-25, have been budgeted in our biannual budget at the amounts that are there before you, 9.2 and 9.6 million respectively. And then years 2025-26 through 28-29 are projections of what the cost will be. Those will be, determined as we move forward. The way that this works is that each of the contract agencies of the fire department picks up the percentage of costs associated with the staffing that they have. So we have 20 staff here. As I said, we have 9 at each station on the fire suppression side, and then that's 18, and then 2 here. Was a deputy fire marshal, now plan checker 2, and a code compliance officer. So that represents right now 5.88% of the total staffing in the ACFD universe, and that 5.88% cost is what we pick up. You'll notice a slight difference there moving from this year, 2023-24, to next year, 24-25, it goes down to 5.83. And that's because one of the, they're adding a 4th firefighter to one of the county fire divisions. And so that denominator goes up a little bit, but our number stays the same, so it goes down a smidge for us. You can see there that I've also included the annual increase from the previous year for each of these years moving forward. Next slide. So that's finally our recommendation before you tonight is that you approve the resolution between the City of Emeryville and the County Fire Department for July 1st, 2024 through June 30, 2029. That is the end of my presentation. I think perhaps Chief McDonald would like to make some comments as well.
Welcome, Chief McDonald.
Thank you very much. Mayor Welch, and members of the Emeryville City Council, I'm Willie McDonald, the Alameda County Fire Chief, and I'm joined with Chief Randall West, who has been a member of the Emeryville Fire Department for many, many years, and very honored to be here. We have served the Emeryville community since 2012, and it's been our honor and our privilege to be able to do so. We've been really thankful for our relationship that we have with the City of Emeryville. It's been a wonderful partnership. The commitment of our men and women of the department really love serving this community. They feel like they're really a part of it. It's a very high level of services that we provide, a wide breadth of services that we provide, desired services as well as ensuring the public safety. As I say, our folks really enjoy working in the City of Emeryville. It's a desirable assignment. They come here, they stay here, and they feel like they're really invested in the community and part of the community and love to engage. And our relationship with you, the council, as well as our staff and our residents, we have felt honored to be a part of. And so we really appreciate our ability to have served the City of Emeryville in the past and look forward to our long relationship in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Chief West, did you have any comments?
First, I want to say thank you for having us tonight. And on behalf of the Alameda County Fire Department and the men and women that serve here in Emeryville, we are very fortunate to be part of such a great city. We love working here, and we love the support that you all give us each and every day. And we are truly dedicated to make sure that we serve the men and women and the community members here in Emeryville. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any clarifying questions for our call for public comment? No? All right. At this time, I will call for public comment on this item. Any member of the public that would like to comment on item 12.2 can do so now for 2 minutes. Yes, Mr. Sanford.
Thank you guys for letting me speak. I just want to give you guys thanks for all the work you have been doing in Alameda and also in Emeryville. My name is Andre Sanford, and I'm a candidate for State Assembly District 18. And I'm just delighted to see all the work and effort that you guys are putting forth here and the balanced budget that you have and ensuring that the people know that what the fund is going to be for. So thank you guys very much for your report today, and thank you guys for being here to show and highlight to the people what the budget's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanford. Members?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Thank you. We got a motion.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Councilmember Bouders?
Aye.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce is absent. Vice Mayor Mora?
Aye.
And Mayor Welch.
Aye. Item 13, department head reports. Anything from the department heads? Thank you. Item 14, future agenda item requests from any council members. Anyone? All right, going once, going twice. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The time is 8:57 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.
Recording stopped.